Hello, welcome to day 3 of the Personal Corona Recovery Program, or Reboot Yourself. My name is Peter Mueller and I've designed this video series during the 15 days of self-quarantine imposed by the government to help you to redesign and reshape your life for the future. You can see these videos by going to YouTube and simply typing in Peter Mueller Reboot Yourself and the corresponding day, and you will have access to the videos. So if you want to repeat the video segment, taking some notes, there is no problem. This can be done at any time. I want to urge you to really follow through on all the exercises and everything I'm saying every single day. This is not a program for a pick and choose. I try to get an idea or something like that. No, if you don't follow through, don't even start. Because this program is really designed in this turbulent time to use the temporary change to establish new pattern of thinking and new pattern of acting, that when the times come back after the quarantine time and you go back to work, that you can start in a new rhythm with a new thinking process, with new time management patterns and new ways approaching problems and having a balanced emotional life. So every single day has its specific purpose of this program, and you cannot jump over one and saying, oh, I pick up in another 2 days or so forth. No, you really have, because every day is building on the learnings of the previous day. All right, now let's go into it. First things first, you know it. Day 2 checkpoint. Now I see some people getting a little nervous here. Did you take any action after viewing day 1 or 2 videos? I hope you did something, because remember I told you, whatever I tell you and you are reading and writing down, hopefully in your journal, in your daily journal, everything what you don't implement or try out within 24 hours, it basically disappears. And you will not having the benefit of the use of these ideas and concepts. So immediate action and implementation is the key. So did you check the website pdfdrive.com? Not only for this program. I think this is one of the most valuable websites for your life. Did you download the book 101 Crucial Lessons, and did you read yesterday lessons 1 to 5? I'm not sure. There is still time. You can download. Do you have a hardbound journal? Did you really start? Please do it, because loose leaf kind of stuff gets lost, and no follow through, no discipline. And these are exactly the things we want to instill in this program. Focus, discipline, organization, persistence are key components of your new character, how you approach situations in life. Now, did you take any notes during the video? Do you have it right now? What I was talking was not written on the slide, but maybe there was a good idea. Writing it down immediately on your journal is very important. Did you start the 10-minute evening review? Very important. If you don't start with it, it will never get established. Nobody will do it for you. You have to do it. I checked already on you if you read the first 5 lessons of Crucial Lessons in the book. If not, stop the video right now and do the exercises, because we are talking about now the Pareto Principle, and while you went in day 2 through the beginning of your organizational materials, the Pareto Principle will be very useful in the organization, in the weeding out of your files and so forth, what you have started yesterday. Now today, the Pareto Principle. Wilfredo Pareto, he was an economist in Italy living around the 1900s, and from him the famous 80-20 rule was brought. Actually, he found out that it was around 1906 or so when he published it the first time. He found out that 80% of the land of Italy was owned by 20% of the people. And so everybody took it and took two different components for input, output, investment, return, and made it 80-20. But actually, in most of the cases, it's not 80-20, it is 10-90, it can be 70-30. The only thing what it says, the Pareto rule, that it is an uneven distribution, that it is a non-linear relationship between two variables. And the 80-20 rule is used in many places, as we will see later, and it is a key component for prioritizing tasks and resources and so forth. Whenever you have limited amount of resources that you cannot do everything what you want to because of the lack of resources, you will use this principle in your problem-solving methodology, for sure. And as this picture here illustrates, effort on the horizontal axis and result on the vertical axis, you see if it was linear, it was just a diagonal line. Every step on effort gives you the same amount of return. It's like a ladder going like this. But as you see, the other curves simply show the 90-10, that in the first 10 moves to the right, you move actually 90% on the y-axis already up. With the first few steps, you achieved a lot, and then you go to the right-hand side and you see the concept of diminishing returns. That is the concept. I take a few examples from macroeconomics to illustrate the concept. When you, for example, look, this is a WHO statistic. When we look at the 195 countries of the world and we put them in deciles, so the first 10%, so the first 19 countries are the first decile. So in 10 groups of 19 countries, you see the distribution of the GDP. So you will see that out of the 195 countries, the top 10 countries produce 58% of the world GDP, the top 20 countries do 83%, and the top 30, 90%. And based on that, you know the other 160 are actually in charge of 10% of world GDP. So you see on the left-hand side, they are sorted in descending order. That's always the concept of the Pareto principles. You make buckets and you measure how frequently something, you make the collection in the buckets, and then you put them in descending order with the most material in it to the left-hand side and going in descending order. The ranking system works like that. So on the red bars, you see simply very quickly the line going down from the first decile to the other countries. And on the right-hand chart, you see the cumulative effect when you add the first decile to the second to the third, and it has a kind of a logarithmic shape of curve when you cumulate the first 10, the 20, the 30, and the 40 countries. This is a typical way of visualizing Pareto data. Another way, this looks a little complex, you can take yourself later time in the video and look at it. It simply talks about the income distribution in the United States in 2018 and the tax. Everybody talks about all the time income inequality and taxpayer wouldn't be fair or so forth. Here I gave you a very simple example about the federal income tax. That is only one tax, okay? But here it is. When we take the federal income tax, we know that the top 1% of people in America they make 21% of the income and they pay 29% of the income tax. And it goes to the point, for example, the top 10%, they make 40% of the income of Americans, but they pay 70% of all taxes. And you can see this in the various stages. And based on that, you see also that the bottom 50% of the American population, so half of the American population, pay 3% of all federal taxes. While, again, the top 1% are paying almost a third of all federal taxes. This is a result of the so-called progressive tax. For the details, you can look, and you see also here the logarithmic shape of the curve when you accumulate the number of people participating going up to the 100% taxes being paid. Now, the Pareto Principle is used not only for money, it is used everywhere. And when you apply this at home and make some exercises, you will be surprised what you find. When you go to business, for example, very often when you have a sales force in a given country, you know that your top salespeople generate much more revenue and profit than the average person. In many cases, the top 10% of sales reps generate 40% of the sales. Or, for example, if you have all the Walmart locations over the United States and you take the top 10% of the Walmart locations, let's say if Walmart has 1,000 locations in the US and you take the top 100, they don't have 10% of the sales. They have something about 20 or 30 or so. This is always with skewed or uneven distributions. The case, or another case, 20% of the menu items of a restaurant make 60% of the sales. You can go to every menu in any restaurant. Let's say they have 80 menu items. If you take the top 5 selling dishes, they make more than half of all the revenue. This is important to know when you revamp a restaurant, for example. If you want to increase efficiency and increase the quality of cost of goods and so forth, streamlining, for example, your menu, this is the approach to do it. Or 10% of Americans pay 70% of the federal income tax, as we had it. Or the top 15% of students have all straight A's. This is a fact which is everywhere pretty universal. You can go to any country in the world. Or when you have a stock portfolio at home, you can look, your top 3 stocks make maybe 75% of all your profits. Or, as I mentioned, the top 10 locations of Walmart make X percentage of sales. So it's not only 80-20, it is sometimes the top 10% make a certain percentage of the total revenue or whatever you measure. Or a practical example in your household, if you go through your spice cabinet, let's say you have 15 or 20 different spices, you would, for example, find out that the 5 spices you use the most, you use in 90% of the time. And the other spices all together, you use only 10% of the time. So from that point of view, you realize it is applicable everywhere in business and at home. And here is an important thing, the concept. It is the concept of diminishing returns which comes into play. When you put effort on the bottom line, on the x-axis, and the results on the vertical axis. So, for example, if you would have a certain number of hunters and bullets you have to kill all the deer in New Jersey, if you wanted to do that. So you could come to the conclusion you need 1,000 hunters with 1,000,000 bullets and they could kill, and it wouldn't be enough or whatever. It wouldn't be enough to kill all the deer. But based on historical experience, you could maybe find out that with the 10% of hunters you have, you may get 50% of the deer killed. And while 60% of all your hunters would kill 90% of all the deers. And you would have a curve, and you could, within that curve, you could choose any part based on the resources you have available to say, I go to that degree of the solution to the problem. That's also when people often say, perfect is the enemy of good. Sometimes you start a little earlier before perfection, because to reach that last little bit of perfection, you spend a lot of time and resources to get there. And sometimes you have to ask yourself, is it worth it? For tomorrow, action, action, action. It does not change, ladies and gentlemen. On the left-hand side, you have your daily to-do list. I'm not going to repeat it, but this is your reminder from your book, from your reading of 5 lessons, to taking copious notes. You know the spiel. For tomorrow, tomorrow is day 4. Finish the tasks for day 1 and 2, what you have not completed. Number 2, read lessons 6 to 10 out of the book. Number 3, one exercise, make 2 Pareto charts with anything at home. Go to the spice rack or go to the shoe cabinet and look how many shoes you have, and look how many pairs you regularly use. And look at it, maybe 3 of your pairs you use in 90% of the time, and the other 15 pairs you have you use almost never. Or with shirts for men, with ties, you can do whatever. Take 2 and just practice and see the benefit of it. You will find some interesting things. And then more on the strategic note, think about 5 things where you would like to apply in your self-improvement process during the next 13 days to come, where you might use the principle. For example, for your financial analysis, where the money goes, your spending, that you would sort out your credit cards. You look, where goes the money? To the bank, to credit card payments, to going out to the cinema, or whatever. The same in a later stage when we talk about time management, you definitely will look where you spent your time. And you will apply this principle. But think about it. Think about it where you might apply it in the future. That's it for today. A lot to do. One simple concept, but you will see it when you do your computer file sorting from yesterday and your paper files. You will see big piles and small piles. You see, the Pareto is there already. And now you can actually use it consciously. Okay, by doing all of it and going into action, see you tomorrow. And tomorrow is Saturday. Tomorrow we do the first section on meditation, and we will have a meditation together. For the weekend, we may take it on Saturday a little slower, because I'm sure you have for the last 3 days anyway enough to recover. On that note, see you tomorrow and have a lot of fun.